My dad served in the South Vietnamese Army, and after the fall of Saigon in 1975, they came here. And like he said, I was born in Philadelphia and raised in Upper Darby. But since I was young, I always knew of this thing called the Vietnam War. And it's kind of complicated being first generation, because while I knew that the war had caused so much death and suffering and unhealed wounds in Vietnam and in America, I also knew that it led to me being born here with opportunities my parents only dreamed of. When I was growing up, my mom would randomly say to me, "Con trai một ngày đó, con sẽ là U.S. Senator," which means, be careful with tuberculosis. It actually means, son, someday you could be a U.S. Senator. Which is really funny because she never said president. I don't know why. But I think what she was getting at was, son, you have opportunity. I didn't become a politician. I became something better. I became a high school social studies teacher. I went to Westchester, right, Westchester. And in my senior year, I was in student teaching, and I was placed in a school in Deep Delco, with Mr. Davis. And let's just face it, I don't look like your stereotypical history teacher, but this guy did. Okay, just imagine, he's like mid-50s, he's bald, facial hair, and he coaches a sport. I mean, it's perfect, right? And I soon realized he and I were not going to be the same kind of teachers, like I just wasn't his vibe. But we taught U.S. history, and eventually we got to the unit about the Vietnam War. And what he always did, and this year was the same, he invited the Vietnam veterans of Delaware County to come in and speak to our classes. And they came in and they were great. And at lunch that day, we're sitting in the teacher lounge at the table with the veterans, and Mr. Davis is in front of me. And I was telling him how the part of the presentation where they had the kids wear the helmets and backpacks and stuff was kind of cool. And Mr. Davis looks up at me and says, "Yes, Stan, maybe someday they can dress you up as Charlie." Now, if you don't know the reference, Charlie was the nickname given by the American soldiers to the North Vietnamese communist enemy. The enemy of my father, right? The enemy of these men at the table. So it's pretty insensitive and ignorant, bad joke, if you want to call it that. But in that situation, I'm not really powerful, so I kind of just nervously laughed it off and the conversation moved on. At the end of student teaching, I got a pretty lukewarm letter of recommendation from Mr. Davis, but I somehow managed to get hired back at my high school over Darby, where I became the first Vietnamese American social studies teacher there in history. What do you know? I taught U.S. history with some other colleagues who taught the same course, and one of them invited the Vietnam veterans of Delaware County to come in and speak. And in walks the same four guys. And they were great. End of the day, I just felt like sharing. I was in a different position now, because I was a teacher. And I told them, "Hey guys, thank you, but I wasn't sure if you would have some mixed feelings talking about your time in Vietnam and looking across the room and seeing me, the Vietnamese guy." And one vet stepped up and said, "Stan, our time there was difficult, and we didn't get to finish what we started. But you being here, being a teacher, living in freedom, lets us say that some good came from our mission." I was very touched. That was my first year teaching. I got hired at Westchester the year afterwards, and next week I start my 24th year as high school history teacher. Last fall, I had a full circle moment, because I actually met another Vietnamese American history teacher. This guy's great, he's talented, he cares about the job, he's gonna do well. And I know this for a fact because he was my first student teacher. At the end of the experience, I got to write him a very strong letter of recommendation. And I cannot wait to see what he does with his opportunity. Thank you.